The Canon 5D Mark IV is a fabulous camera, but it is now almost 5 years old. And whilst that will not have diminished just how great a camera body it is, in 2021, with all of the new competition that is around, does this 5-year-old camera body still represent good value for you to buy? The Canon 5D Mark IV is, well, to put it mildly, pricey. As of today, the 16th of February, £2,800. It's $2,500 US off Amazon.com in the US, and in the Euro region from Amazon in the Netherlands, 2,600 euros. That is a hefty price. So does the camera meet up with that price? The Canon 5D Mark IV does a lot of things really, really well. And first and foremost, it is an out-and-out photography machine. It is a fantastic stills camera. It has a great sensor, great resolution at 30 megapixels, fantastic dynamic range and color depth, really good and quick focusing, and good low light performance. It is really, really well built and weather sealed throughout, and as it's a DSLR, has great battery performance with around about 900 to 1,000 shots from a battery in optimum shooting conditions. It also has an optical viewfinder, being a DSLR, which is a bonus if you prefer that type of viewfinder. It also has good connectivity with NFC and Wi-Fi built into the body, and comes with dual card slots. So it is great for peace of mind for professional shooters who want that redundancy built into the camera. Being an EF mount, it has the history of EF lenses to go along with it. So it literally has hundreds of lenses that you can choose from. So there's no getting away from it. The Canon 5D Mark IV is a truly magnificent stills photography camera. But does that still stack up against its competition in 2021? Okay, so what doesn't it do so well? The biggest thing for me, absolutely, since I bought the camera, has been the lack of an articulating screen. Now, for some people, you may not be interested in an articulating screen, but for somebody like myself who has got used to using camera bodies, even prior to the 5D Mark IV that had an articulating screen, this has proved to be a big sticking point for me. I think in 2021, the option to have that is really a must. And having that fixed screen just does not give the versatility that I am looking for in a camera body. And that versatility also extends to being great for video, whilst the Canon 5D Mark IV would take a lot to knock it off its perch in terms of its great use for stills. As a versatile camera, it just doesn't have it. The video mode is a little bit dated, giving a maximum of 60 frames per second. Whilst it can do 4K, the files for 4K are absolutely huge, and putting them into anything but a top spec computer is most likely to cause your processing and editing process to become very, very slow. Again, that lack of articulated screen for video becomes problematic, and in this day and age, when people are looking for a versatile camera that they can use for both vlogging and for photography, not having that articulating screen is a big issue. It is quite a big and heavy camera. Even for a DSLR, it's big and heavy. You certainly won't need any extra weight to weigh your tripod down in landscape photography with this beast atop of your tripod. And whilst it may be a negligible thing when you are out in, say, landscape photography, and it's in a bag for the majority of the day, the weight can become negligible. However, using it for event photography or wedding photography, where it is around your neck for 10 hours, the weight becomes really, really noticeable. Again, going back to that versatility issue, it doesn't have independent controls for video and for stills photography. So switching from one mode to the other, if you change your settings in stills mode, you are also changing your settings in video mode, which again, for that versatile shooting where you want to switch between video and photography, just isn't good enough. And whilst newer tech certainly doesn't make older tech any less worthwhile, there are cameras now out on the market that have much better tech. For instance, eye focus that the Canon 5D Mark IV just doesn't have. So what is the Canon 5D Mark IV's competition? Well, from within the Canon stable, then you have a couple of options. In a DSLR, the real option that you've got is the Canon 6D Mark II. Now I'm discounting the 1DX Mark III on the basis that it is almost £6,000 for that camera. It's quite a specialized camera. It's a little bit niche, so I'm just going to pop that to one side. Now the 6D Mark II is a very, very capable camera if you are not a professional shooter. Now that has got nothing really to do with image quality, but it has got something to do with the fact that the Canon 5D Mark IV, as mentioned before, has those dual card slots. It does have slightly better dynamic range and color depth, is a better spec photography machine. But that said, in 99% of situations, that image quality is completely negligible. And when you take into account that the 6D Mark II will save you at a new price here in the UK, somewhere in the region of £1,400 for body only, then you really do have to weigh up whether you really need those small incremental improvements that the Canon 5D Mark IV offer you. If the 6D Mark II doesn't wet your whistle, then we can move across to the mirrorless options from Canon. You've got the Canon EOS R, which actually was launched with very, very closely matched specs to the Canon 5D Mark IV. Now the Canon 5D Mark IV does have a couple of advantages in terms of pro shooting. Again, those dual card slots, which the Canon EOS R doesn't have. And with mirrorless, you are decreasing battery life because the EVF, the electronic viewfinder, is constantly consuming battery. And therefore that battery life is around 50% less than the 5D Mark IV. So if battery life is a massive thing for you, and for things like wedding photography, it certainly will be, and those dual card slots as well, then the EOS R really doesn't match up. But in terms of everything else, it actually does. And again, when you are looking at the value option, the EOS R right now in the UK, you can pick up for around £1,600, which is a saving of £1,200. Now, if you don't need that dual card slot for your EOS R, then you can get a body and a decent lens and the spare batteries that you need for the same price as a body only for the Canon 5D Mark IV, making it remarkable value in comparison. So next up, your options are the Canon R5 and the Canon R6, which were both released in late 2020 and really changed the playing field for Canon in terms of their mirrorless options, and actually are probably nailing those coffin lids on to the Canon 5D Mark IV. Mirrorless is the future for Canon. They are unlikely to make another variant of their top range DSLR cameras. The Canon R5 and Canon R6 are both fantastic cameras, so you can expect to see some content coming up on the R5 and the R6 pretty soon. So hit that subscribe and bell notification if you want to be kept informed and not miss that. But with the R6 coming in at a similar price point to the Canon 5D Mark IV, I think it really does give it a run for its money. And then from outside of the Canon stable, you've got options such as the Sony a7 III series, which at the base model a7 III will save you almost £1,000 in the UK on that Canon 5D Mark IV price from new. They are hugely spec'd. The a7 III has 24 million pixels. The a7R III has 40 million pixels, represents much better value than the 5D Mark IV. And then of course there are other options from Nikon, Fujifilm, etc. available. So In conclusion, would I recommend you buying the Canon 5D Mark IV in 2021? From new, unless you are a professional photographer who absolutely has to have the optical viewfinder, then I would have to say no. There are just too many other options out there representing better value for money. And whilst it is a marvelous, marvelous camera, it has just not got that versatility that I think is demanded in 2021. I've been Dave, this has been Let's Click Photography, and from me for now, ciao.